when Monster Hunter came out, Monster Hunter Wilds came out in February of this year, I loved the game. If you go back and look at my review of the game when it came out, it's a raving review. Loved it, still love it. But as I played more of it, and as a lot of people had played more of it, some things became kind of obvious, especially when getting introduced to faster and faster monsters. It began to show some cracks. There's a couple weapons that just didn't seem to be keeping up, that seemed to be funneled into one move, that you couldn't really get out of if you wanted to, beat a monster in a respectable time compared to other weapons. Or just weapons that just didn't play the same, didn't feel the same. The weapon I'm focusing on is the weapon that I play, which is the Switch Axe. The Switch Axe lost its identity from 5th gen, which was World and Iceborne and Rise and Sunbreak, up to 6th gen, which is Wilds. It lost its identity because Switch Axe was a stay in one place, hit the monster for good damage, like really good damage. I think at one time during Iceborne it was technically the second highest DPS weapon in the game if you had a down monster. I think only to dual blades it was second. But that's what it came out like. That's what the Switch Axe was if you weren't good at it. If you get good at the Switch Axe, you will know that the moves move you. Okay, so the attacks, depending on which attack you do, will move you forward, backward, what have you. Utilizing this, the weapon is actually quite mobile. And you do not have, or you did not have, a lot of attacks that require you to stand there and have these super long animations. However, the drawback for that was, especially in sword mode, you had a hop. Instead of a roll after a lot of attacks, you would only have a hop, which would give you smaller iframes than a roll. It was hard to dodge things. So you were kind of a glass cannon in that you could do a lot of damage. But it was harder to get out of the way. Even with the added mobility of the moves, if you knew how to, chain them together to go forward or backwards, in the instance of either fade slashing or morphing, depending on what attack you wanted to do to move you forward or backward. But those attacks do not have iframes, so you had to really know what you were doing. Fast forward to 6th gen, and everything is funneled through FRS, full release slash, which basically made the Switch Axe feel like 5th gen Greatsword. It felt like World Iceborne Greatsword. And I played World Greatsword. I had my fun with it, but it wasn't the Switch Axe. It's not the game's play loop that I wanted. It wasn't the attack style that I wanted. I wanted to be able to move. I wanted to be able to get in, get out, have that flow to the combat. Where Greatsword, you ended up standing there and charging an attack a lot of the time to deal your good damage. And that's what we saw in Wilds with Switch Axe. Everything funneling into FRS, you need to get FRS out as often as possible. Now, unlike Greatsword, FRS did have, or does have, Hyper Armor, but only has Hyper Armor once it's fully charged. And once you start charging FRS, you have to finish the move. There is no getting out of it early. There's no charging it up faster to get out of it early, because if you release it early from the charging, you do not get the hyper armor. Therefore, if you're about to get hit, you have to hold it and hope that you timed it correctly. Okay? And it's one of the longest charging attacks in the game. You know, single attacks, like Greatsword, True Charge Slash, if you go through the whole combo, is going to take longer. But you have ways to get out of it. You can shoulder tackle, or you can, you know, let one go and then get out of there. Switch Axe just became this stationary, I'm not moving, come get me kind of weapon, which was not the gameplay style that all of us had become accustomed to. So over time, it became harder and harder for me to come back to the game, because I just preferred 5th gen for the combat style for the Switch Axe. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying Wilds is a bad game. Wilds is an excellent game. I've had very little issue with Wilds overall, but it did kind of make this divide where a lot of Switch Axe mains since launch have been kind of complaining, you know, what happened to our quick switch from Rise Sunbreak? What happened to, you know, multiple playstyles that weren't just, you know, all built into one move? Like, Zero Sum Discharge was a playstyle in World Iceborne, but it was one that you didn't see everyone using either. You saw a lot of people just stay away from that move, and it's completely viable. You can also use it to cheese like Fatalis, which I don't like doing, but you could do that. While that move is still in Wilds, it is basically not used by anybody. But you know, it's been a problem since February, and it is now December 15th. And tomorrow we get title update number 4, which is what you see behind me here. Great artwork, by the way. Great artwork. But with title update number 4, we have an update to the Switch Axe. And ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what we needed for the Switch Axe. So going through it. Sword mode. Counter Rising Slash can now be chained into a sidestep. I like that. That gives us more mobility options. It's a sidestep again. So it's not full iframes. It's a shorter amount of iframes, but it gives us that mobility to be able to get out of animation and go into something else. It gives options, which is good. The more options we have with the rest of the weapon, the more likely people are not going to feel like they're stuck in FRS spam. Because FRS spam just does not feel fun. So, you know, you don't want to be stuck in that. Next, sword counter Rising Slash has increased invulnerability to knockback and can be quickly chained into an evade. Increased invulnerability to knockback. I'm wondering if they just extended the time for which that you can hold the counter. I have a sneaking suspicion that's what they did. We'll have to see when it actually comes out, see what it's like. And that is, you know, tonight/tomorrow when Title Update 4 drops. But we'll have to see what happens there. And then quickly chain into an evade. That's nice. Because then you can... There's a lot of attacks that you would normally counter, but you cannot counter quick enough because you can't counter back to back. You need to do something in between. Unless you stand there for an extended period of time, waiting for the full recovery frames, which becomes a pain in the butt. You don't have nearly that time with any monster. So that might help with, survivability for the Switch Axe, because you do end up getting a lot of chip damage with the Switch Axe. Over time, chip damage just becomes an issue. If you do not know how to manage it and manage your position properly, you will just be healing nonstop. I've had it, like when Legiacris and Seregios first came out. My gosh, I was getting destroyed. You can now evade while charging Unbridled Slash and Full Release Slash. That is interesting. It is a straight buff to FRS and Unbridled Slash. I don't know that I really wanted a buff to it in that way. I'd rather have the move gone, to be honest. I'm going to keep using it because it's the most powerful attack Switch Axe has right now, and it's silly not to use it if you have an opening for it. But overall, I do not like that attack at all. Give me Soaring Wyvern back. Like, somehow, some way, put it in the game. Give me Soaring Wyvern. Get rid of this Full Release Slash bullshit. I don't want it in the next game. If it is in the next game, I want it to be something that is harder to get to, that you can only pull off when a monster is knocked down. That's what I want. You can now quickly chain into an evade when landing after performing a zero-sum discharge finisher. That is game-changing. ZSD might actually be useful again. That's amazing. Please let that happen. I would love nothing more than ZSD to be useful again. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see if that happens. I hope it does. I hope it's good. I'm not really sure how the numbers map out on ZSD compared to everything else, because it just, again, it doesn't get used in Wilds. So maybe I'll do some testing for that, see if it's actually even worth it once the patch comes out. But I suspect, and I'm hopeful, that it will be worth using, because we desperately need some variety. Focus Assault. Morph combination was adjusted to make it easier to hit wounds and weak spots. Okay, that's fine. I didn't really have an issue with that, but I'm not mad about it. Focus Assault, Morph combination, raw damage has been increased. That's awesome. Like, damage being increased, I'm happy with that, because Switch Axe, again, went from being, super high up to now I think it's middle of the pack as far as speedrun times. And I think it's dropped like 4 spots or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it's like 4 spots. It's dropped from 5th gen to 6th gen in speedrun times. At least the ones that I saw. Raw damage has been increased for Sword, Overhead Slash, Sword, Right Rising Slash, Sword, Left Rising Slash, and Sword, Heavensward Flurry. Okay, so basically, what is that? That's your B attacks, correct? I think, yeah, that should be the B attacks. So raw damage increase for those, which is great because those also are the ones that you're going to be doing for your gauge. So pretty much all those. Heavenward's Flurry you don't really use that much. You usually stay away from that because the damage output compared to what you get for it as far as animation commitment is usually not worth it. But all those are fairly common moves. Unbridled Slash, raw damage has been increased. Okay. So that'll bring Unbridled closer to FRS, I'm guessing. Elemental scaling for multi-hit attacks and raw damage has been increased for elemental discharge and zero-sum discharge. Again, making those attacks worthwhile to be using. I cannot state just how awesome that is. Where was I? Axe Spiral Burst slash raw damage has been increased. That is the only axe increase that's in here. I would like to see more axe raw damage going up, because you get the faster monsters. You're an axe a lot, especially trying to do offsets and whatnot. So that'd be nice, but you know, we get a lot of stuff here, so I'm not going to complain too hard about that. I mean, I'm not going to complain about it at all, but you know, just saying. Raw damage has been increased for sword, downward fade slash. Thank you, fade slash. Sword, morph double slash, and axe, morphine rising double slash. I'm good with that. All those getting raw damage increases. It's gonna help out. Sword, morph slash, raw damage has been increased when chaining from an evade in sword mode. Okay, so that's going to be, if I'm thinking about this correctly, that's when you're in sword mode. You roll forward and do the morph attack to get more distance. Basically, everyone that plays Switch Axe does that because it's the best way to get distance when in sword mode. It puts you back in axe mode and gives you a lot more on that evade. It doesn't have iframes on the morph. However, it gives you a ton of distance, and it's one of the earliest things you should learn as a Switch Axe main. Super useful for getting out of the way of stuff. Let's see, last two here, looks like, last one. Fixed an issue where the values on the status screen for Dragon File, Poison File, Paralysis File, and Exhaust File would show a higher number than the maximum possible value. Okay, so it was actually telling you that you could go higher than you could legitimately. So you're like, oh, I can get this to 600, and actually the cap was like 550. Okay, so they fixed that bug. This does not change the actual functionality, just the numbers that are displayed. Okay, so basically it cleared some stuff up where it was a little misleading, which is great. Monster Hunter needs to do more of that. Monster Hunter needs to do a ton more of that. One of the things I dislike most is how not arbitrary, but how weirdly worded a lot of things are in Monster Hunter. That they don't really come out and tell you exactly what they mean a lot of the times, especially the skills. They need to be a lot more clear on all that. But I do believe this is going to make my time, and I hope a lot of other people's time with Switch Axe, a lot more enjoyable. It's a great weapon. It really is. It just seemed to be a little bit like it's lost its identity in Wilds. It seemed like it was really trying to find itself, and it just couldn't. It was just a weapon that didn't have an identity. So, thank you so much for watching. If you did like the video, please consider liking, subscribing, leaving a comment. I hope to see everybody in Wilds tomorrow. I know I'll certainly be playing. I'll be playing a little bit tonight. But thank you again, and happy hunting. Bye.